Oh, gee. Well, due to me getting a new firewall, not what I've been using, I'm able to start up right off the bat.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, yeah. And it's a little bit safer. So, here we go. We are live. And guess what, everybody? It is Education by Ed, and it is June 10th, 2018. Now, Ed is very long winded. He says, a lot of times. And he gets loud and even brash at times. But the thing is, those are his faults, or some of them. He really knows his stuff. So when he's trying to give you guys the information, you need to stop sitting there coloring your little coloring book, and stop playing Sudoku, stop looking at Fedbook or Facebook, whatever you want to call it, and actually pay attention. Get your pencil, your pen, notebook out, and actually start writing this stuff down. Because in the future, and a very near future, this could actually save your butt from being kidnapped and held for ransom in one of the many institutes out there that is called prison. So,
or FEMA camp.
Oh yeah, and FEMA camps, or even just the cops deciding, or the policy officers just deciding to, oh well, we don't like the way they look, or they didn't move fast enough, or we just feel kind of belligerent today, so we're going to beat the crap out of them. The cops do this. So, Ed, why don't you give them some information they can use?
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us again. We do appreciate those who listen after the fact, too, because of their schedules. And that's the one thing about this. It's about educating ourselves and keeping up with the things compared to what we think it is. I've been doing a lot more research here lately dealing with the states of some of their new policies. Some of the police departments are actually have to coming out and admit that they have no insurance policies. And if they don't have insurance policies, they are being told they cannot be publicly out in public. So this is just something that's new coming through, but it's going to take the rest of us to start pounding it through people's heads so it sticks. And that's the one thing I am working on with that this week. I just realized, because they just sent me some paperwork on my alleged foreclosure on my property taxes on my land, which I still have never agreed to any of the terms, and I've been asking them to prove where I signed the contract. I've asked them to prove a lot of stuff, and so all I'm doing is getting steamrolled. So now I'm getting ready this week, starting tonight, tomorrow. I will be putting the first series out for the rights to travel to each and every senator, congressman, House of Representative in the state of Oregon, also to the Department of Justice, and clearly asking them to define the right to travel by their own administrative rules, because I'm quoting their own administrative rules that says we have a right to. We don't have to register our property, and we don't have to register our land, as well as our, for our insurance or anything. We don't have to do it. We're supposed to be self-insured, technically, just like the public servants are. So we are getting that together. We will have more that put together out. I'm putting together a template that I'm going to be sending out tomorrow with this letter, because I am putting Dexter Johnson's information, the head of the Legislative Council, letter into this, where he clearly states that traveling is non-commercial structure. Commercial is paid employment, but in his statement, he was crafty the way he put this letter together and stated in the letter that it was up for the House and Senate to decide that. He couldn't decide a legislative decision. Very crafty lawyer work when you look at the way the public the way Dexter Johnson, who's the legislative counsel for the Oregon State House and Senate. See, this is when you get to realize how these men and women actually write this stuff, put this stuff together, how they're able to twist words around, and you don't even know what they're doing. It's going back to 2005 when they changed the Ethic Committee rules and regulations, and they changed it from hang on, I'll get to that in a minute. But basically, they changed the Ethic Committee Commission to a new structure in 2005. Originally, it was voted in 1975 by Oregonians, and it had with all that, if any elected and public employee, let's say, like when I filed on Kate Brown, that was proven to be factual as an attorney, born in Spain, not an American, even by Oregon State Constitution, which I do have the original Constitution structure up on my website, and I've had that certified going back, oh God, that would have been 1996. So a lot of that information I've had out there when it comes to that stuff, and you know, nobody argued with a lot of these things. We've got a lot of other good men and women out there doing the same thing. We've got their paperwork out there. And that's the whole thing, is combining this stuff so that way we are standing as one. Now, getting this thing with the rights to travel out with Dexter, and that I will have that out because I'm questioning them, not only that, but medically, because basically I'm told I'm supposed to die. I was just informed that over the last couple of days from the Senior Disability Services in Lincoln County. They made it abundantly clear that there is no services for anybody in Lincoln County because it all went to their employee paychecks, which I already know. I already proved all that a couple years ago. That's why I'm still having some of the issues with them, because they embezzled the money and proved it. And so that's, you know, one of the reasons why I'm still getting taxed. It's sort of interesting. I find it a coincidence that, you know, my disability check and everything gets shut down all within 30 days. What's going on with the information I'm not getting? I'm not getting mail from the post office at all. Even certified letters, I have not received anything, even from the certified letters that I paid and sent for over the last 8 months. So it is interesting that, you know, this is happening. And I've been making sure that Senate and House members, I email this stuff around. As most people know, you know, as people prove now, I'm getting ready to start the other email this morning or tonight. I'll be doing that because I'm going to be questioning, because I'm going to be quoting the hospital administrative rules where they have to provide medical services, even under duress, and duress is a physical and mental and emotional lawsuit that can be filed on public servants for doing this. So I'm going to be putting that together and putting it as the affidavit structure with that, the rights to travel. I've already done that before. The only one that's had any response to that in the past, who's made any real effort on that, was Senator Kim Thatcher. So we do have some other people out there that are getting it, that are seeing it. But now it's going to take more of us to maneuver it. Because it's like I had one senator that said to me, hey, Ed, if the people start backing that up, we can back it up. But this is where people have got to realize, when you want masters and slaves and you sit there and claim that you want alleged freedom and you have no concept what the reality of freedom really is, it's really scary. I mean, when you look at what's going on. We've got these immigrants, like I did mention yesterday, you know, that one military base that called on the immigrants, and now they're fighting it with the attorneys and all that, and I called the military up and wanted to thank them, and I gave them the actual law of their oath of office as well as for their structure to protect them. So that way, when the media went after them, here's the law. Throw it out to the wolves. That's what I told the commander. See, and that's the other thing. Let that, you know, when we have the public service resources, and we're supposed to be using them, that's what we're supposed to be using. So this is the other thing that frustrates me, because we're supposed to be having, House Resolution 192 in effect. Well, the whole thing is that the bankruptcy thing is all fraud. We know that. We've discussed that. We've proven the evidence. I've written many things of it beside many other men and women who have done that, and written the affidavits up, put the facts in. So this is the one thing that when we are accomplishing these things, now when we start getting this letter out, I will be sending everybody a copy of what I'm sending out personally to the entire House and Senate and Congress. I will send a copy to everybody that I have their emails or on my email list, my friends list, and if you want to be on that, and make sure that you send me an email too, because I'll make sure you get the email. And I will also too, for those who would like, I'll even email you what I filed on the county dealing with the property taxes, for them to prove their oath of office, for them to prove their authority, for them, and I've written it all that way, so that way I want to see their proof. I want to see that the circumstances that comes right down to it is, where's the authority? You guys are threatening me that you're saying if I don't pay your taxes or your Caesar taxes, and I'll cross the line, your religious point of view of taxes, because it's all religion when it comes down taxes and donations with nonprofits and 501c3s and through 501c39s. So, all that goes right into the IRS taxes of the British government of, what is that called? The bankruptcy of 1933. So if they're supposed to be having all this stuff, that they're writing it off, so that way every time that somebody pays a debt, instead of being compromised under 192, the way it's supposed to be matched for debt, supposed to be written off, not added to. So it is interesting when you step out of this production and you see what's really going on around us. And so to put this thing to corners coming up, I'm going to be sending out a lot of stuff, because apparently, they want to try to start foreclosure proceedings on me 2 weeks. They're going to see what I'm going to do. They're going to check my reactions out. I already know what, some of the other stuff. I know that I'll start seeing, probably, who knows, I might even see more patrol cars running up and down my street again like I used to see all the time. Of course, they stopped doing that after the judge bought the house across the street and put cameras in. So, yeah, I always thought that was interesting, that the judge bought the house across the street. Of course, the judge bought 4 more houses just right around me. So it is interesting. And we do have them on record, not having oaths and all this stuff. So bringing it up, it's like when these people are not having their structure and everybody keeps going, well, how are we supposed to do this? That's what I'm saying. We've got to start filing not only the criminal charges on this, but get it out there. So when the House and Senate starts moving. Now, we've had some things that the House and Senate or elections that have been going on, and it's like, people, quit getting involved in these worthless piece of junk elections. Ask these public employees what they are doing to protect your bloodline, your children, your assets, your property. Quit going on, I got to pray to God, because show me God. When you show me God and I can believe that, then I'll believe it. But right now, what I've been going through, with the stuff I've gone through in the last 20 years, still on my own land that I bought and paid for, instead of playing all these, mortgage games and all this other stuff, I bought it from a private landowner. Smart man. You don't borrow money. You don't get involved in foreign structures. You keep it locally. You want to keep your assets and your structure locally. Because remember, banks and corporations cannot own land. Even we have the 12 USC codes of the banking laws even say they can't own land. Cities and counties cannot own land. The corporation cannot potentially own land. The only ones who can technically own land is man and woman. And that's by their own administrative rules as well. So, but what these guys are getting away with, a lot of the stuff they're terrorizing us and getting away with, we got to make sure it's getting out there. Because, I mean, I got to resend this stuff out because I know that, you know, it's interesting because I know that, like, Lars Larson, you know, he runs for me because I've proven the fraud with that. And, what was his associates insurance company, Liberty Northwest Insurance, and the fraud with all that. So I got more, and then I'm going to be emailing this other stuff, too, that I'm starting with this workman's comp stuff that I'm going to be emailing to the Workman's Comp Board, the Governor's Workman's Comp Board. I'll be getting that done here in the next 72 hours, too. Seeing that, to the best of my knowledge, I'm still a member of that Workman's Comp Board for the state of Oregon. I've been a member since going back to 2000. So that's the one thing, you know. They try to put you in positions to keep your mouth shut, but my problem was I never could do it. So now to open up this other stuff, now to get it open, we need to start making sure that we get more and more people that are going to be filing and standing up. We need to make sure that we've got to be working more together with each other. You know, it's interesting because I noticed tonight that 3 other people decided all of a sudden to do their show or their conversation of their law, what they call their talk law shows, you know, tonight, you know. It was all of a sudden, you know. And it's interesting because some of these programs, and I'm going to call them programs because I can't call them anything else because they're keeping people in the system. And when you've got these men and women that are so-called advocates out there claiming a title and nobility, that's what an advocate is, title and nobility. So these men and women are out there claiming title and nobility. We're helping people, we're helping people, but then again, if you don't give me money, you know, we're not going to do anything for you. Which I find interesting. I haven't done that and not being threatened to be shot off my land. Physically, literally, no bullshit involved. Because, you know, I paid for it. I'm not going to bow and give it to some religious cult called Christianity. That's when the churches and stuff do it. That's how they do it. Been doing it for hundreds of years. Treaty of 1213, the Magna Carta. And then people still want to do that treaty in this country. You know, our forefathers gave us something called freedom. You know, and that's the one thing. It's interesting because, you know, now they're coming out with DNA structure says that the original natives are white, and, you know, we already knew all this stuff. We all know that it doesn't, skin color doesn't mean nothing. It's the organ that your body came from. When everybody wants to do skin color and all this stuff, divide and conquer, and you say, well, I'm an African American, I'm a Native Indian, I'm just a bloodline Native. I don't need a title and nobility because when you say I'm an African American or I'm something else, a Chinese American, I'm a Vietnamese American, you people don't get it. You gave yourself a title and nobility. You gave your rights over back to them under the 14th Amendment under, what was that, Dred and Scott case. Which they say Dred and Scott case doesn't matter anymore, but that's not true. They're still running the Dred and Scott case over the Civil War called civil rights. And this is the one thing that people don't comprehend, the Civil War and civil rights. You know, all these civil rights activists in the 60s were doing all this stuff. It was that, no, people were waking up to, it wasn't a color issue. Some people kept on being a color issue. Well, the Constitution is not a color issue. And I get into people with this on different talk shows. I just done this last week with several other people. You know, giving them some suggestions on what they were having some issues with. The thing about it is the Constitution and the structure of this country is not a color issue. When it comes down to it, it's really disturbing because You know, we had treaties that we, if we're white, if you want to call us white or whatever you want to call us, but we don't know. I mean, at least I know my bloodline supposedly goes back to the 17th century. You know, I can physically prove my heritage going back to the 1800s. So, I mean, I comprehend the structure with the foundation of this country was being founded when they passed the 14th Amendment administratively. Oh, and then they passed the 16th Amendment administratively, which people go, oh, they passed it with the Bankruptcy Act, so we have to pay it. No. That was passed administratively, and that's why when the elected and public officials and contractors were getting paid a de facto dollar, okay, they had to pay taxes on that dollar. We the people don't. And it says it right there in the structure of their employment. They're obligated to pay taxes for their employment. So when they have this stuff that is written, and it's like people want to take the 14th Amendment out of context. You know, I deal with people with this all the time, and it's like, you know, if you don't realize that we're supposed to have some point that we have a bloodline that we're supposed to be protected by. It doesn't mean that we're supposed to have open borders for everybody to run to this country and think that they have a right to freedom. All right? People go, well, just because you weren't born there, you know, you have a right to walk across the ocean. Okay, walk across the ocean, but you don't need a boat then. See if you survive. If you're going to play Jesus, then play Jesus. See, that's the thing that people, they don't get a lot of time where the system brings us to a fantasy point that, and people still want to live in a fantasy point. You know, I mean, I'm trying to get my soil so I can grow some food here. I'm trying to get a little healthier on some of the stuff. Of course, I know I live next to what is that called? A pulp mill. I live 10 miles from the Oregon coast that's full of radiation from Fukushima. Plus 2 and 3 hour drive, 4 hour or 3.5 hour drive is Hanford that's still leaking in the Columbia River. See, you know, this is the point that we have all these things around us that got us our direction. Now, are they talking about any of this at the Oregon State House and Senate or Washington or California, Idaho, Montana, dealing with the radiation that's poisoning us? No, everybody wants to argue about jobs. Well, everybody wants to argue about jobs, and when you don't have a job, all right, how are you supposed to eat when you can't go out and hunt and fish? How are you supposed to survive if you can't go out and throw a crab ring out, and then if you don't pay that permission slip for religious purposes? You could be assaulted or executed because you didn't pay the king. You know, our forefathers fought against this stuff, and we're living this crap right the same way Nazi Germany was doing, no different 40 years ago. And we're living it today. We got our public servants out there that they are being trained to do this deliberately. And when they sit there and they go, these attorneys and these guys go, oh, we don't know any better, they're full of shit. And you people buy it. That's what amazes me. You know, you figure after 20 years, when you're sitting there watching this stuff, you figure after 20 years, people start going, hey, maybe there is something wrong here. But people just are not paying attention. And then everybody wants to go, well, I want to go be an activist. And everybody wants to go do a 501c3 so they can make an income, a living. Well, if 501c3s were supposed to be writing it off to the banks, aren't we supposed to have our water, electricity, or basic food bills already paid under the debt of the Bankruptcy Act? A lot of us have read it. A lot of us have done research on it. A lot of us know the truth of it, and a lot of us, like with Walter Bruin, you know, has brought the facts out. I mean, that's a very smart, very thankful man. That man brought out a lot of information out to the general public, and people, you don't even realize what that man has done, putting out, dealing with exposing the fraud of the money that they've embezzled from you, personally. We're not supposed to be paying these deals. That's why I'm going to start my letters coming out, because seeing that I've already given them a look at the chance. So, and I really don't got a court case to file, so now I have to file my court case, but now I have to just go ahead with the public evidence. So, but I mean, all this has been in public evidence. I've got the, I even got the videos of me up at the Oregon State House and Senate where, everybody's even talking about how they tried to kill me and everybody thought it was a joke at the Capitol. And this is public hearings. I mean, so it is interesting when you step out and you realize how some of these things do happen. But see, to them, you got to remember, a lot of these men and women, like judges and cops, to them, it's literally like a chess game. It's not real to some of these people. And that's where we have to start standing up and start making sure that these men and women who've been getting away with this stuff start going to prison. That's like they're freaking out still over Comey right now because he wasn't registered. And I'm an attorney. I don't have to register it under the 1938 Foreign Agent Registration Act. Well, Trump had to fire 4 of his top attorneys he had for 20 years because all of a sudden they never registered, and it was a conflict of interest, so now they couldn't be employed. Trump got it. At least he stood up. That's where people ain't paying attention to a lot of what Trump has done. Trump figured out some of these rules and administrative rules, standing up for what people have filed. Democrats are pissed off because they're getting scared because they're looking at indictments. And that's what we want them to be indicted. And that's going to take we the people to do this stuff. I mean, this is the one thing, it's interesting. Because, I mean, everybody knows, most people know I've gone after these public employees for 30 years. It's been there. I've even got news clips where, even putting the district attorney, the state attorney general on public trials and stuff like that. So, and it's not that I'm out trying to boast. Trust me, I'd much rather be out fishing. I'd much rather be doing something with my life than doing this. The stress that I'm going through with this, just like some of the others are going through the same stress that we're going through, fighting these battles. And you got to remember, this is what they do. To them, it's actually a game. And see, now we're starting to get the pieces of the game. Like, when it comes to your bloodline, you have to file ownership. See, and once you start filing your ownership, people say, oh, that doesn't matter. And it's like, folks, you guys got to start realizing this stuff does matter. I've been watching people for some time going through what's going on. And I watch people all the time that don't know what's going on. I watch people that are slowly opening their eyes, starting to see some of the truth or the reality of what's going on. Some people are scared because I'd much rather keep my head buried than come to reality. And it's like we could all sit there and do what we want, but when it comes down to the bottom line of it, what is anybody going to remember anybody for? See, that's the one thing. Most people don't get it. Who's going to remember who, what, for, why, and how? Hey, instead of people want to argue this point, argue that point. Why are people arguing when we're supposed to be working and protecting the bloodline? And that means even legal immigrants. Illegals, like I called up the military the other night when they sat there and they had that running around where those little Mexicans were going, we're going to boycott the airport and we don't want to sell you guys pizza anymore from Domino's Pizza. Well, fine. Domino's is not an American company anyways. So these are things that it's like, people, we've got solutions to these problems. let's start making sure that these indictments start coming out. Let's make sure that these things are being brought forth. Now, when I start putting that letter out, I will be putting it out. We'll have it on new.org and trackers on the rights of travel. I will have that on all 4 of the Facebook sites that we have. So that way people get that. We'll have it on all 4 of the sites. Because that is what's going to bring up a whole bunch of things when this stuff starts unraveling when it comes to people's rights. It's interesting that people are still flying the war flag in their buildings and in their homes. You know, that's the one thing that we've been discussing here for the last for a while now. And a lot of people are still flying the war flag. You know, why are you guys flying the war flag? I mean, where's the peace flag you're supposed to be flying? I mean, you know, that's the one thing. We all been through this stuff. We all know what we're supposed to be doing. So we're supposed to be protecting our bloodline and protecting our families, and how come we're not flying the, peace flag? We're flying that red and white war flag of the military, the arm. So you are saying that you have no rights by flying that flag. Oh, yes, you are. You're telling the world that you are a military slave. And that is the one thing that people are doing. You're telling people you are a military slave. So, I mean, it's up to you to start seeing how this stuff works, how it applies. And, of course, I got to say, I do have so much fun with a lot of stuff that people are running about what they call judge and writs. I did confirm again with the state of Alaska from their own legislative courts. She's never been a judge, and, you know, it was an interesting conversation I had with them again, but it's like, be careful of people like this that are out there selling these packages and trying to get you roped into giving them basically your time, because they're out there confusing the issues. They're not out there putting solutions out to put these people in jail. They're not out there writing the arrest complaints themselves, because some of these people can't, because when you sit there and claim a title of nobility when you have no authority, it doesn't mean anything. And that's the one thing that people got to realize: a title of nobility is a foreign corporation. That is the main point. It's a foreign corporation. So either you're a man, woman, child of a man, woman, or you're not that when it comes down to it. You're just a fictitious corporation. So, and that's the saddest part that we are living when we're going through these type of things. And so, you know, stepping out of, like I always say, step out of the movie, watch the production. And what's going on, there's a lot of things that are coming through. A lot of people are starting to open up more and more. A lot of people are starting to look at what other people are doing. You know, it is one of those things. And I always love it when I keep getting all these attorneys that want to be friends. And it is interesting. But that's the one thing. It's like, you know, you got these guys out there that want to make a living out, but they're not willing to do it on their own per se. And when they do it, they're not willing to back up somebody else. So, I mean, it is a horrifying structure of what we got, you know. I mean, it's interesting watching what's going on with, you know, what they call Hollywood, with all these stars and all these things that everybody's whining and crying about. You know, and I think it's funny that all these stars want to boycott themselves and say, well, you know, if you don't vote Trump out, or if you still want your runs and you want your rights, instead of paying the privilege to us to entertain you, which to me, I find that some of that stuff not entertaining at all. But I mean, to each his own. We have that right. But the other point is paying attention to what we've got going on in front of our face. I mean, we've got a lot of things that are going on that the House and Senate are passing. And I always love it when people say, well, they can pry my gun from my cold, dead fingers. Well, you know something? When you're the only one standing there, hello, there might be a little reality check. You know, and that's the one thing. And we do have some actual good public servants out there. We actually do have some good public servants. We do have some public servants that are actually making some changes and switching. They're seeing what's going on. They're realizing that the potential that is going to happen to their own families. You know, because remember, you got public employees now that are waking up to some of this stuff, and they're deciding, you know, how bad do they want their job, or how bad do they want friendships or anything else. So it is actually waking up on this stuff. It is bringing these things out, but the main point is that we have to sit here and start being more responsible for those around us. So this way we're not allowing people to, you know, come in and interfere and drop the ball. Because we've got things that are starting to move. Like I said, we got some of the stuff on the flag issues. You know, not as much as what I would have expected, but, you know, then again, it comes down to, it depends on how many people are willing to be involved. So that's the one thing that people have to realize on that. And so sometimes it takes a lot of people, sometimes it don't. We are making things move. And so the major point on it, we are starting to see the numbers coming up in more than one way. And the whole purpose of all this is so that way we know what's going on, so that way when it comes down to the bloodline. Because that's the one thing that, you know, people don't really comprehend in this reality of the world, that the bloodline, you know, is so important. Everybody goes, well, like I said, I'm an African American, I'm a Jew, I'm a this, I'm a that. Well, every time you say you're a this or a that, you're giving yourself a title of nobility.
No.
So either you're a man or a woman. Are you from the United States of the 48 states? Are you a real American? Are you a foreigner that we have to sit there and actually pay attention to? And then that way, when you become lawful, we don't have there's no qualms, there's no arguments. You already proved your point. You survived. See, that's the one thing that people don't realize, how survival is, how it is to survive in your country, or how it is to survive in our states. Because our states, you know, when all this stuff is going on, everybody keeps going about the Constitution, it ain't ours. Everybody goes about the Federalist Papers. Well, see, the thing is, it doesn't matter what, why, and how. The matter is that we come to a common belief that equal man and woman have equal rights. I don't want to hear this stuff about, you know, oh, God says this and God says that. Doesn't a man or a woman have to live with their own, structure that they make their own judgment on themselves, and they have to live with it? Who gives somebody else the right to be mightier than what some people would even call God? Because God doesn't do that, you know, go that direction. At least that's not what the Christians say. But then again, who knows what side is saying what? And this is the point that we're bouncing around on these things, trying to figure out what, why, and how. Now, I mean, it's like, you know, they want me to come up with basically $3,000 to say what my land that I own, you know, I'm getting ready. I'm going to start the whole thing again, start getting these emails out, this stuff out. I can't get out. They've got me blocked in, per se. I mean, it's interesting how some things have developed in the last couple of months. So, but, you know, I mean, and it's real what goes on. I mean, you know, these things do not just sometimes just accidentally happen. So it is one of those things that you got to step out of the movie, watch the production, and pay attention. And so that's what we're doing. So I will start getting this deal out to the House and Senate for the rights to travel. We'll have the first one started out in the morning. because I'm going to be buttoning it up tonight. I'm going to try to keep it basically within for me, this is going to be an extraordinary circumstance, but I'm going to try to keep it at least to about 4 to 5 pages only. So that's going to be an experience for me, but I'm going to back it up with the other stuff that I can back it up with on the emails, but I'll keep it to 4 or 5 page initial. So it basically comes across so it's not overbearing. Because I know sometimes I do get overbearing, but I'll put the other evidence behind with it, the other 30 or 40, 50 pages. But I'll at least get the first one out on the rights to travel, get that one down. I'll be getting the subsistence hunting, and then I'm going to be putting back to dealing with taxes. I'm going to be asking for the state attorney general, and I'm going to be going to the Ninth Circuit Court in San Francisco. I guess that mine, I'm going to have to file something somewhere, so I can't do it any of the other ones because they're all district courts. You know, I mean, I know that people have said that they're supposed to be Class 3 courts, but, you know, when they're flying that flag, and at least we have one honest public servant that actually put it in writing that that flag is anywhere where it's at, hey, you're walking in and giving your rights over to the British government called military courts. Admiralty Court, military admiralty, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same difference when it comes down to it. We're still fighting the same structure of somebody trying to claim that they have an ownership over man. And that's what I find very interesting, because we're still fighting supposedly over an ownership of ourselves. And we know the 14th Amendment separated lawful and legal. So that's the one thing that sort of stuns me. When we have it where it's separated, lawful and legal, how come we're not paying attention to the circumstances of the truth? I guess that's what I find very unique in some of the stuff that we do. You know, it's really interesting. It's really interesting. So it's just one of those things that, you know, you wonder what's going on. And you're wondering how these pieces are coming together and how these pieces are fitting and how they're, you know, how the circumstances are coming together. But it is starting to come together, and that's the point that we're working on these things, so that way we have these things that are happening. So, anyhow, what I'm thinking about, we're into this a little bit. I think we'll go ahead and open up for comments and go from that direction and see what we got going on. So, anyhow. Did I hear you back? Hey, Lynx.
Hey, Ed.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to be reading comments, or are we opening up the floor so people can speak for themselves?
Yeah, we're going to let people speak for themselves.
Well, there's comments and opening up the floor. There's two different things here.
Oh, that's true. That's true. If we got comments ahead, we could answer the comments, and if not, then we'll go ahead and open up the floor.
All right, there's no comments, so we're going to open up the floor. Here you guys
All
go.
participants are unmuted.
So, anybody would like to speak up at this point? Any suggestions or ideas or thoughts? Well, I guess not, huh? Okay. Well, so anyhow, I'll be getting the structure out on the rights to travel, putting that through all the media, trying to get it out. If you guys see it, that it's starting to be posted around or going through Facebook or other channels, please make sure you help so that we can make sure that that keeps up and going. Because, see, if we don't start talking about the rights to travel, if we don't start making it happen instead of all these people that are sitting there, you know, putting their head in the sand, now let's start doing it. We've got videos. We've got a lot of people have been going to jail. A lot of people have stood up. Now we've got the things that are starting to move. Now let's get it moving. Let's get it so the House and Senate, let's get these men and women and start putting it in writing. You know, I mean, I would like to get some of it, you know, certified and stuff, but, you know, right now, seeing that, you know, it's been interesting that, you know, this little time limit and things that they've done to me, coming after me, I mean, I've got to start really going off in a direction here to figure it out, but I know I'm not playing, you know, the master game. You know, but I want them to prove their points. They have obligations they have to prove. They're not proving, so we've got to figure out, I got to figure out a way to make sure that this comes to light. So that is one of the structures that I'm working on. So that's where I'm at. So we'll see what happens. If worse comes to worse, I know it happens, and so I just got to deal with what's coming down the pike in a couple of weeks. So that's where I come across with the other point where people say, oh, you need to have faith. Faith in what? How to deal with reality. I'm living life. I see what's in front of me. So, you know, I deal with reality. So most people can't deal with that, but I have to deal with the reality. I can't sit there and deal with imagination or, you know, it just doesn't work that way. Never been that way. So it's the only way we're going to be able to survive and protect the bloodline. People are getting it. People are standing up. We are getting children. We got hospitals that are actually standing up with some of these people around a couple of these states, and some of these medical personnel, they're getting it. So that's the whole point. When we're putting these things together and we're putting these files together and we're walking people through to protect yours and their bloodline. And you got to remember, these doctors, some of these doctors, they're finally getting it because they know what they've gone through. I mean, that one thing was great with that one nurse, the Utah nurse, who got beat up by the cops because she wouldn't give them drug tests and alcohol tests. Now, I've been through that myself here in Lincoln County. You know, there's cops were trying to set me up as a drug addict when they try to beat me to death in an IB's parking lot for putting the ballot petition statewide, so that way you had the right to feed yourself. And people know what it went through. Oh, that's right. It was supposed to be for lawful Americans versus legal citizen. You know, lawyers freaked out over that one. Oh, my God, it's going to be a Constitution, real thing that we couldn't argue. And that's the whole point. It was setting it up so that way they couldn't argue it. That way we had to know who our lawful rights were. And that was my Senate Bill 803, 805, and 804. So things like that, when you look at what goes on, how these things happen, and what we have to do to protect our future. And that is the other point. It is getting out. I'm glad to see people are picking up on the Social Security stuff compared to what they think it is, compared to everybody trying to tell them that, you know, hang on. Social Security is not for you and all this stuff. I do have the foundation of Social Security that's going up. We'll be having that posted up here next day or two, so people could actually read the foundation compared to what it was changed. So the foundations go back to the day that when your birth, basically, or your born date was conceived, and that's where it goes back to. So anybody who was born after the Clintons, they're the ones who really gave it over to the Queen of England. So anyhow, I guess we'll go ahead and see if anybody's got any comments, and I guess not, then I'll go ahead and start getting this out. But we want to make sure, like when you're getting out with the IRS agents under ORS 192, you know, dealing with, what is that called? House Resolution 192 that gives us the right, and it's even by the UN code, it's by the IRS code. I put that up in the last few days. Even it goes to the, what is that? Department of Army Field Manual in 1969. So I put all this stuff up here recently so people can sit there and read this information, put it together, how it works, and realize that, you know, when it comes down to especially the 1938 Foreign Agent Registration Act, elected and public employees have to register, and it can't be in anything for personal financial gain. So we are getting this out. This is going to be filed. I'll have that filed. Actually, this is going to be filed with the rights to travel and part of my paperwork I'm putting together tonight. As well as I'll be putting that in with the rights to travel with hospital, dealing with hospital employees and liabilities, because medically we're supposed to be able to medically transport ourselves too, and instead of we're being told that we don't pay the privilege to somebody to transport us, we're supposed to die. And I was just informed that by the Lincoln County Senior and Disability Office. They took all the money for that, put it in their little slush funds, and then they don't have the transportation funding that they are supposed to have for the disabled and elderly compared to what they get from the House, because, you know, they'd run 3 books. So it is a loss what's going on with some of these accounts, and that's the whole point, is getting these things out, getting the liabilities things out so people can actually see them, put them together, and so we can file on them. We did bring out, and I did bring out so people could comprehend, 11th Circuit Court decision. I wanted to make sure that went out publicly. I'm putting that out. I'm not going to get into reading that. I want to hear some other people's thoughts on that. This is, and I emailed it to a lot of people, USA versus Delroy, Anthony McLean, and case, and it's an interesting case. So I want people to read this one for themselves, because I want to see if you get what I see or what I get in it. You know, this is the point where we're not going to be sitting there reading these things to go we're bouncing them off each other, so that way we can make sure that we're actually reading what we're seeing instead of interpreting. We don't want to sit there and interpret a lot of this stuff like people do. So anyhow, well, I guess that we'll go ahead and start wrapping up. But remember the one thing too, when you have done dealing with medical and other stuff, duress. Remember one thing: if you are an injured party, the corpus delicti, duress follows under that too. So that is the one thing, reading these things, comprehending what these words mean, comprehending what these administrative rules mean versus the actual law. And duress is a section of 21 corpus delicti. So that way you know that when you're talking duress and stress and mental anguish, medical stuff like that, that does apply. Okay, even though that you got some attorney on the other side, well, we don't want to put that in the book. It's like I've been having the attorneys calling me from the doctor's office here lately, going, we don't comprehend what you're filing and stuff under your duress claims and stuff, and I'm like, oh, but you just told me you just read what I filed then, but we don't comprehend it. Oh, but you told me what you did. So in other words, they know what I'm filing, and they're sort of trying to figure out how to get out of it. So it is very important to, when we're fighting these fights, to read administrative rules, knowing the procedure of the court system. And that's the problem. We don't know the procedure of 80% of the court system because you don't know what court we're supposed to be in. They make up this stuff as they go. So that's why it's so apparent that we get these peace flags back in these courtrooms and start ordering these things out of the public buildings, get them out of the school, get these military flags out of our structure. That's once we can start focusing on really protecting the children this way, instead of going through the craziness of going what we've already been through and what we're going through. And that's the one thing, too, and the one page I did put out dealing with that is the government manual. And dealing with page 390 is Attorney General part of it. And I do recommend people read that part, go through that structure. Because once you start reading these things and you start putting these military structures together, you start putting these banking structures together, you start realizing that these people don't have these administrative rules or authority over you. So, it is one of those things that are a beautiful educational piece as we're working it. So, seeing that we're not having any comments tonight at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and let's say we'll just call it an evening. I will be getting this stuff out on Facebook and other emails out to people too, so that way we can get this out. Anybody wants to join in, emailing this structure. I'll be doing California, Oregon, or if you want to change in your state and add your state into that on the rights to travel, so we can get that put out to the entire House and Senate and Congress. Seeing that we already know we have a right to travel. And so we'll get it put out. I'll get the finish of that. Like I said, I'm trying to keep it down to certain pages. So anyhow, if we're not going to have any commentary back right now, why don't we just call it an evening? And I'll get more updates to you soon as we get them going through the week. So with that, may the Great Spirit bless you. May the Mother Earth feed you, and may the Creator protect all of us.
All participants are muted.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ed. Well, as you guys saw on the YouTube, tilt, Ed went on a spree, so basically he broke the pinball machine.
Thanks, I caught that. That's why I was like, I know I was going off on a deal. Yeah, I got it.
But it is Sunday, June 10th, 2018. It is 6:02 Pacific Standard Time. I know the shows have been getting shorter and shorter, but that's because Ed is getting busier and busier. So thank you.
Well, and also, too, I'm trying to get these things written up, so not only I can get them out, but I want to make sure I get them out, because if they're coming after me, I'm not going to sit there and have some local media says, oh, we didn't know what was going on. Just one of those circumstances.
Right. He's extremely busy, basically, so we need to give him as much time as possible. Those who decide to call before 11 Pacific Standard Time to Ed, that's 11 a.m., you're morons, okay? He is busy. He's up until 3, 5, 6, even 8 o'clock in the morning trying to get this stuff done. He is working like crazy. He doesn't get much sleep, so give this man who's got a lot of health problems, a great mind, but a body that's basically betraying him right now, give him some time to rest. But during the shows, if you want to ask something, ask it when the floor's open. If not, well, guess what? See you next week.